Now, for many, Series 3 of The Crown would have been the first time getting to know the late Prince Philip's mother, Princess Alice. But her extraordinary real-life story, as one of the show's writers said, is beyond what any script writer could come up with. So here to tell us more about it, please welcome royal biographer Hugo Vickers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Now, you've written about Princess Alice, and actually, this has been reprinted, hasn't it? Just called Alice, this book that you've written, because there's been renewed interest in her story because of The Crown. But as you say, there is so much more to her story than we saw in that show.
Well, the trouble with The Crown was it was so dishonest, and everything about Princess Alice was wrong. However, people were buying the book in America, so I said, please, can we not reprint it over here? And the story is very interesting, and I mean, it's the story of somebody who dedicated her whole life to the service of other people, you know, which is so unusual these days.
When you're looking to write a book, she wouldn't necessarily be an obvious choice of topic. I mean, she's fascinating, but, you know, not someone that a lot of people would have known about. How did it come about that she became a subject for you?
Well, I agree with you. And what actually happened was that Prince Philip's private secretary, Sir Brian McGrath, rang me up one day and said, we're looking for somebody to write this book. And I thought at first, gosh, will anyone read it? And I thought, don't be so stupid. This is what you've always wanted to do. And he said, I went to see him. He said, my job is, your job is to get a publisher and write the book. My job's to open doors for you. So I had this wonderful access to anyone I wanted to talk to, and archives.
Including Prince Philip?
And very much including Prince Philip.
So he only rang you, really, in the first place because Prince Philip wanted a book about his mother?
It was mainly, actually, Prince Philip's sister and the Queen who wanted it. Prince Philip had to be slightly persuaded, but they were there to help. And you could suggest possibly to hinder, although they didn't. But you know what I mean? They were there to guide the book.
Because growing up, nobody knew about Princess Alice, even though she was living in Buckingham Palace.
And I tell you, the person who knew as little about her as anyone was Prince Philip himself. He really
He
didn't know
had like a
anything.
7-year period of his childhood, didn't he, where he didn't really see her at all?
No, absolutely. And I mean, she was very fascinating. And you know, she'd been born in the presence of Queen Victoria, which was amazing. And then she was deaf, so her mother said, you know, no concession must be made to her at all. So she had to learn to lip read in several different languages. People put their hands up like this to stop her reading, you know, because she could read.
To know what they were saying,
To know what they were saying, exactly. And then, you know, she went to live in Greece, and that was pretty difficult because, you know, they were always in and out of exile, and there was the Balkan Wars where she was nursing. And then, of course, they were finally thrown out and they went to live in Paris. And you know, they didn't like being in exile. But, and then, of course, after that, then she had this sort of nervous breakdown. As you say, she didn't see Prince Philip for 7 years. I mean, he really couldn't even get a birthday card.
But she was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic.
Yes.
Do you think now, looking back, that was a correct diagnosis?
Possibly. It's a difficult one to say. In those days, I mean, she did certainly behave very strangely. And I mean, there's every reason why she should have done. Her 2 aunts were murdered in Russia, the Tsarina and the Grand Duchess Elizabeth. All the people who, you know, had been sort of Grand Dukes here and there, all gone after the First World War. They were out in exile. They didn't have any money. You had to rely on rich relations. I mean, it was an awful life.
Yeah.
And she definitely was behaving quite strangely.
Did you find it invasive reading through the medical records of somebody that... Because no royal would ever openly allow the public to read their medical records like you've had access to. Did you find like you were guarding quite a few secrets, or did you put everything in the book?
I didn't put everything in the book, but I wanted to explain what was happening and why she was there and how they tried to treat her and how she got better. So I didn't put every single detail in by any means. But, I mean, it was amazing. Her German grandson, one of her grandsons, translated about 60 pages of German medical records for me. Wow. You know, which nobody had ever seen.
For everybody... Oh, sorry, Charlotte, carry on.
No, I was just going to ask about her relationship with senior royals, you know, like the Queen, for example. Well, you know, did they get on well?
The Queen was very good to her. When she came to live in Buckingham Palace in 1967, Queen said she didn't really know her very well at that point, and they used to go and have dinner with her a lot and things. And the person who really got on well with her was Princess Anne, who absolutely got her point and spent a lot of time with her grandmother. I think much more enjoyed and was more impressed by that grandmother than the Queen mother, who was more of a Prince Charles. They were very different.
How they got on with each other. How did the Queen mother get on with
Well,
her?
the Queen mother didn't really get on very well with Princess Alice. I remember she said because I was able to talk to her as well, and she said that they used to tease her about the nuns' robes and said, you know, it's very fetching. You know.
Prince Philip had a certain reputation. I mean, I only ever met him once, and he was quite terrifying. He had these sort of, like, gimlet eyes and, you know, seemed to sort of treat everybody as if they were stupid. What was he like behind the scenes when he wasn't sort of being Prince Philip out in public?
I was immensely impressed by him, the way he operated, the way he ran his office, the loyalty that he inspired from absolutely everybody. I mean, his archivist had joined in 1953 as a lady clerk to answer letters about the coronation. She was still there in 2017. Amazing.
But how did you... Were you a bit scared when you first went in there?
To begin with, I mean, I was given an hour with him, and Sir Brian took me upstairs and said, I'm going to leave you, you know, leave Hugo with you. And he looked a bit nervous about that. And I thought, I won't ask him about his mother at all, because and see what happens. I'll ask him about other people. And then, of course, he spoke about his mother. And when I went down, Sir Brian said, well, how did that go? And I said, I think it went all right. He said, well, you were with him for an hour. If it hadn't gone all right, you'd been out in 10 minutes. And he was very impressive, very straightforward.
Now, we see a lot of royals choosing to tell their own stories in books these days.
We do.
Do you feel as though there's still going to be space in the future for those who are as close as you were to the royals to tell their stories on their behalf?
Well, I hope so, because, I mean, it's interesting if you can look at the papers and you can talk to people and you can get the essence of somebody. And I was given this incredible access. After that, Prince Philip did read the typescript. In fact, I remember delivering it to the office. It was about this thick at that point. And he looked at it. He happened to come into his office. He looked at it like an unexploded bomb. But then his private secretary came down and said, I have to tell you, he expresses himself very robustly. I said, I know exactly what he does because I'd seen what he did before. Yeah. Rot, rubbish, nonsense in the margin. Didn't mean it was that. And so in particular, you could then say, well, would he like to see 20 pages of Foreign Office papers? No, you win that point. On to the next.
Well, I think it's important that those stories are kept and that we're able to refer to them. So it's a really interesting book. Hugo, thanks so much. Thank you, Hugo Vickers.
Thank you.